Namaste and hello everyone. Welcome back to the Metaphysical Library. In today's video, I'm going to share a couple of my thoughts on the book which I've been recently reading, which is called Jane on the Brain, which has been written by Wendy Jones. Now, I have also acquired the audiobook. In fact, initially I was supposed to be listening to this in the audiobook format, and I have been, I would say, alternating between the audiobook and the physical copy. Now, I have not read the entire book because it's quite a thick book, as you can see, and I have tried to share a couple of my thoughts in this particular video. However, this is not an interactive video. I have been trying to make narrative style videos so that I can focus on the core content of the video. So that is something which I really had fun with. In fact, on my other channels, which I will be linking below, there are other Jane Austen videos that I have been making, and I will try to post a link of those videos in the description box below for you to cross-check. So do please join me further in this video. Jane on the Brain, written by Wendy Jones. Empathetic Austen. Jane Austen is a much-loved author, and through her works, she exudes a power which is unique and comforts the reader and also makes them connect with the characters and her world. Among Jane Austen's characters, we, the reader, can connect, reflect upon, and empathize with the situations faced by these characters, since they form a part of our daily situations too. Not much has changed situation-wise really, but of course the conditions in which women found themselves then and now are entirely different. In a modern sense of speaking, empathy and sympathy are not very far away from one another, but not very different. Empathy being when we can connect with another's perspective and situation and emotionally experience what they are going through. However, we retain our original constitution all the while, with a deep understanding that these emotions are not ours. On the other hand, sympathy may be understood on how we respond appropriately in an emotional way to any given situation. Empathy requires emotional intelligence and a social intelligence, and at times in Jane Austen's work, the characters and the plots evoke both empathy and sympathy within us. Austen's plot in her stories are creatively blended to form a whole world where readers find a corner of themselves hidden, and hence she inspires us, the reader, to go beyond just reading and also assimilating the tiny pieces of wisdom she imparts through them in our daily living, and the fandom and devotion to this wisdom transcends just her stories. The core focus of Austen's novels is the subject of love in all its shades of colour between parents and children, siblings, couples, neighbors, friends, and in all their wide range of emotions such as sensitivity, frustrations, joy, loneliness, and its various nuances and much more. Austen's work repetitively highlight that love, with all its tenderness, gratitude, understanding, passion, losses, attachments, obsession, and emotional resonance, is empathy at its core, while thoughtfully exploring the morality and psychology of relationships. And here we arrive at the mind-brain-heart connection. In this book, the author, Wendy Jones, shares Jane Austen's accuracy in portraying the feelings and relationships through her work, making it possible to know about social intelligence and social connections which influence our lives, and she discusses her characters beyond the mind, deepening towards the neurochemistry of the brain. The emotional scientist Jane Austen. What are emotions? Emotions are what we feel in any given situation or towards someone or something. According to neuroscientist Edmund Roll, emotions are active responses to situations and environments. Emotions can be positive or negative, or as the author claims according to Edmund Roll, a reward in terms of emotion is what a human would crave for. A punisher in terms of emotion is what a human would avoid completely. Hence, according to Edmund Roll, emotions are a dynamic force which could bring us desired or undesired results in any given situation or circumstance. In most mammals, especially humans, ambition and fear are two predominant emotions. So how do these emotions originate and influence us? Here the author takes us on a neurological route of the brain. The human brain is composed of the brain cortex, which evolved from the simpler brain cortexes of the reptile brain. Neuroscientist Joseph Ledoux studied neural pathways, the routes taken by electrical signals that travel along our nerves called neurons that transmit neural signals which are recognized by the human brain as various emotions, the fundamental basic emotion being fear. In the animal brain, fear helps them to survive. However, in the mammalian brain, fear takes two types of pathways, the higher pathway and the lower pathway. The neurosignal which takes these two pathways reach ultimately an almond-shaped emotional processing area called the amygdala, situated deep within the middle brain. The amygdala turns on appropriate responses emotionally, in this case fear, and is responsible for generating other types of excitatory signals. In the story of Pride and Prejudice, when Miss Elizabeth Bennet visits Pemberley for the first time with her uncle and aunt, the Gardiners, the shock of seeing Mr. Fitzwilliam Darcy all of a sudden leaves both Miss Bennet and Mr. Darcy speechless, and various kinds of emotions flutter within each one of them. However, they both are determined to behave in socially acceptable terms with each other. It could be also said that there's a sudden rush of mixed emotion which needs to be governed by both of them at that moment of time. If we look at emotions neurologically, these refer to the subcortical and subconscious neural signals that directly travel to the higher brain area. Mind-brain scientists love to distinguish between the words feelings and emotions. Feelings refer to how we recognize emotions and experience them. Emotions, on the other hand, themselves are neural signals traveling to the brain. Amongst mammals, like humans, a conscious perception is the mind-body response where we respond and we feel. Amongst more intelligent mammals, where self-awareness is predominant, we understand first and then we feel. The author, Wendy Jones, aptly describes Jane Austen's expert emotional descriptions in her novels in these following words. An excerpt from this book, Chapter 1. But Austen, with her extraordinary, one might say, clinical powers of observation, captures emotions accurately as well as the initial subcortical and bodily response to experience, which is much more unusual. We see this when Mr. Darcy unexpectedly encounters Elizabeth and her relatives, the Gardiners, touring Pemberley, his family estate. Tourism of great estates had begun in the 18th century, and a pleasure trip such as the Gardiners and Elizabeth are taking would have included such stops. They had been assured that the family was absent. Elizabeth's last encounter with Darcy had taken place when she rejected his proposal of marriage, and he'd sent the explanatory letter that shamed Elizabeth by revealing that she had been a poor judge of character. The author further describes how Mr. Darcy and Miss Bennet are taken aback but abiding by the rules of social civility, manage the situation politely without being embarrassed or becoming embarrassing themselves. The importance of non-linguistic communication called social signaling, inclusive of facial expression, gestures, postures, and vocal inflections such as tone, volume, and emphasis, was extremely important during Jane Austen's time. Jane Austen reveals the importance of this non-verbal exchange between Elizabeth and Darcy at a crucial point in their relations. Another portrait which Jane Austen creates is that of Miss Jane Bennet, who is deeply in love with Mr. Bingley, but due to her reticent nature is misunderstood by Mr. Darcy and Charlotte, Elizabeth's close friend. This example highlights the importance of observation in the then polite society of Jane Austen. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I had a thorough learning process, and I really loved making this video. There were other things that I wanted to include as well, but then it was elongating the video, which would have become boring after a while. So I hope I will be able to share all of that with you in my upcoming video. So do let me know your thoughts and your suggestions on this particular video. Do you really like the narrative style video, which I am trying to create so that I can focus more on the content and share more with you? Because these are some things which are very, very interesting, and I would like to share whatever I'm reading with you, so that next year when I look back on these videos, I definitely would really enjoy the fact that I have learned something in this Jane Austen July about Jane Austen, who is one of my favorite authors, of course. And just to let you know, there are other videos which I've also been creating. Also, in my previous video, I did mention about the readathon, which is ongoing on another channel of mine, because I am participating in that particular readathon. It's called JaneAustenJuly2021. And in case if you are a Janite, or if you really love reading Jane Austen, do please join us further in that particular readathon. All you need to do is just read any one book about Jane Austen or her works, and I will try to post links to the announcement videos as well as my videos which I have been creating for that particular readathon. So do please check them as well, and in case if you're interested, do please join us. So with that, I'll be wrapping up this video, and I will meet you soon again in another video next week. So till then, take care, have a good reading week ahead, and namaste.